final week of the National Hockey League's regular season, and this is how it sets up. 11 teams still alive in the West, 10 in the East. Doesn't sound like a large number, but for the final week of the season, to have 3 teams still in there battling that won't get in the Western Conference and a couple in the East, it's pretty significant.
It is. I think the bigger story might be the last 5 weeks of the season, where people thought they still had a chance, and so that pool of bodies, pool of teams that played the last month, knowing that if they got on a heater, they could make the playoffs. I think that that's really the bigger story in the NHL this year. This is, we joke about it, but there's no need to expand the playoffs when this many teams play for this period of time before they're eliminated. And so from my perspective, it has been as good a regular season as anybody could imagine. And Daren, it goes back to a silly thing that, we say, well, this is a must-win game in March, a must-win game in April. They had must-win games in December. They had must-win games in November. If you look at, for instance, the Winnipeg Jets,
but they're different. It's different.
I know everybody says it's different, but it's still 2 points.
Yeah, but it's different.
My point is that you cannot play yourself into a playoff position in December, but you can play yourself out. You really can.
I think you can play yourself in too.
Of course you can.
Get going, and they can earn a spot in November, December.
That's right. Well, in fact, Winnipeg's a good example of doing that last year and then this year. Mm-hmm. They played themselves in with going 15-1 last season, and this year they only had 2 wins in December, and are going to be on the outside. So it's the importance, and this is why the season as a whole is always so competitive. The importance of games in November and December should never be underestimated. And I don't know how you can tell and convince the players of that. Coaches try to do it all the time. I mean, look at Todd McLellan. Look at Todd McLellan in Detroit. I think since the 25th of January, they're 5 games under NHL 500, which means they're probably close to 7 or 8 under 500.
Now, there's a guy who was on it early. Remember the first game of the year? He called out his team after game 1. He knew the urgency.
They lost 5-1 at home to Montreal, and they did not play very well, and he called them out. And this is supposed to be a special year in Detroit, 100th anniversary of the organization. And I was saying on Edmonton radio last week, could you imagine Rogers Place and Little Caesars Arena opened at approximately the same time? Can you imagine not having a playoff game at Rogers Place? And that's the case in Detroit. They have not had a playoff game in their new arena. And it's shocking to think that that's the case.
So you just ride this thing out, this rebuild, and hope you eventually get there?
Well, how close are they? How close are they? Do you like Mace? Do you like Lucas Raymond?
Yes.
Do you like Morris Sider?
Yeah, I like a lot of what they've done. I even like what they did. They altered their goaltending. I like that.
John Gibson had a bounce back year. I use bounce back because I listened to the Masters all weekend, and everybody always had bounce back birdies. So bounce back, everything's a bounce back. And so John Gibson had a bounce back season. But Steve Yzerman went out and acquired some free agents over the last couple of years to help their depth. And down the stretch, James Van Riemsdyk, not very much. Mason Appleton, not very much. Comfer, not very much. And Andrew Kopp. They got let down by their depth. And so I'm not sure you can point a finger and say well, that he's a rookie, or those guys were supposed to bring a certain level of compete to this team, veteran leadership to this team, be ready for the playoffs. They couldn't even get them to the playoffs because nobody can complain. I was one of those guys calling out Patrick Kane 6 weeks ago. Patrick Kane had a great March and April, although the stupid penalty didn't help. Alec DeBrincat was fantastic. Sider and Raymond, really good. But their depth evaporated. Where was their depth scoring this year, particularly down the stretch in those must-win games? I think between the four guys that I mentioned, I think they had 4 or 5 goals. It had to be better. They had to be better than that.
So does this rest on the players or the manager or the coach?
Yes. I think everybody's complicit. I think everybody's complicit. Judging the free agents and bringing those free agents in for the short term, that's on Steve Yzerman. Players' performances, that's on the players. Structure, that's on the coach. So the answer is, there's enough blame to go around for everybody to say mea culpa. There's enough blame to go around.
So do you just run it back then with no alterations?
Well, let's face it. Steve Yzerman has built a system and style of a team, and now can he go in and this summer tweak it enough to think that they can compete? And I was walking the dog this morning, knowing that we were going to talk about the Red Wings, and so I'm going to do something I hate doing. If you look at next year. If you look at the Atlantic Division next year, Buffalo's not going to fall apart. Boston's on the rise. Tampa's not going to fall apart. Ottawa's on the rise. And Florida's going to be a lot better.
Bounce back.
Yeah, a bounce back. Where is Detroit going to fit in there? That's the challenge. You know, and
you got to take a spot. They got to do what Montreal's done. Take a spot.
Right.
What Ottawa's done. Take a spot.
I apologize. I forgot Montreal. I shouldn't forget Montreal. They're the most entertaining team in hockey. So all of a sudden, that Atlantic Division, where's the room for Detroit to get into that mix next season? Where is it?
That tells me that the pressure is on, or the onus is on the manager to go out and put together a team that can take a spot back. That gets us into the conversation. Remember the back and forth Dylan Larkin and Steve Yzerman last year?
Yeah.
Larkin's like, hey, give us something. And Steve wasn't very happy about his captain being so public.
But here's the issue. Last year, Steve didn't do anything and got criticized. This year, Steve did something and got criticized. So now it's all very subjective. Justin Falk as a trade, Justin Falk did his job, but did they give up too much for him? What if Detroit wins the draft lottery and it goes to St. Louis? Yeah. I mean, my goodness gracious. So there are a ton of things out there about the Red Wings that you're going, and God bless Red Wing fans. They have been patient. They filled that building a lot this year, but they're in a tough spot. I just don't know why I'm going to think that they're going to be in a better spot next year.
Why wouldn't they have filled the building this year? They were in it most of the year. I don't think they should get credit for filling the building. I think on a team that's battling for a playoff spot.
I think after 9 years of futility, you need to give the fans credit for being loyal. And now it's 10. And now it's 10.
But they've been in and around it the last little bit. At least. Now, if the second half of a season in Buffalo in year 10, I could see bailing on that.
Okay, so what's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on me. No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
Well, fool me 10 times.
Well, no, I saw a promo on the Vancouver Canuck broadcast yesterday where the players were phoning season ticket holders, thanking them for renewing.
Oh,
that is loyal.
And by the way, hey, and look at the weekend the Canucks had. Look at, win in San Jose, win in Anaheim.
Oh, please. As my good friends would say, stop it.
Cup half full, baby. It's just like my coffee. Cup half full.
You know what that is? That's a cup that's got the liner on the outside that makes you believe that the cup's half full. Really, there's 2 drops.
It hasn't gone to the dishwasher enough.
Yeah, no, that's what that is. Hey, we've got.
Listen, but you had to smile. You got me going. You had to smile. Curtis Douglas. Curtis Douglas is 6'9". Yeah. Scored his first NHL goal. They were jumping up and down like they were under. They're 10.
Trying to get to his head to tap him on the head.
Oh God, that was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. Because you can't bitch and complain that the Canucks are that close to the playoffs. They're not. But if it puts a smile on your face at this point,
Players were happy. I don't know
Players were thrilled. Players were thrilled.
Because they're all in the same boat. Oh, we got an opportunity. Utah Mammoth are going to the playoffs for the first time, but we've got Bill Armstrong coming up. Where do you think the expectations are with that franchise?
Well, I think the expectations were they had to get to the playoffs. This was a watershed year for the coach Tournier, for Armstrong, the manager, and they did exactly what they had to do. Now if you look at where they are, they're going to play the Pacific Division champion, whoever that is. Mm-hmm. As I told you 6 weeks ago, I hope it's Vegas because I want that rivalry to grow because I think that could be a great rivalry, even though they don't play that much. Salt Lake versus Vegas is, to me, that's kind of cool. And so if they could actually, if they get on a heater, they could get to the conference final. They have more points than they might have more points than anybody in the Pacific Division and be the wild card.
Yeah.
So
they're just new, right?
And arguably because they live in the Central and play all those big teams, have they a more difficult schedule? I don't know.
So this isn't just we're happy to get in. Because I feel like there's a lot of they're happy to get in. I don't know whether I would put them in a category of making a deep run. They're similar to Anaheim. Maybe a little more structure, maybe a little veteran presence involved. Not as loosey-goosey, but still very much
some of the same issues, right? Defensive structure and goaltending. Yeah. The thing is that if they're a wild card team, they shouldn't go far. Logic tells you they shouldn't go far, but the
Except
Pacific
the NHL,
and it's a disappointing Pacific Division this year from that perspective. The Pacific has underperformed. I know nobody can sit there and say, "Well, that's not true." Yeah, it has. They haven't performed as well as they should have.
It may end up exactly the way we thought at the start of the season.
Exactly.
Vegas, Edmonton, LA in the top 3 spot.
Yep. Can you imagine that if LA ends up passing Anaheim and we end up with an Edmonton Los Angeles series again? Oh my God.
I don't think it's going to happen. Do you?
I didn't think Anaheim would lose to Vancouver.
Yeah. LA. They got some work to do just to lock down their spot. Billy's in the green room. Let's get to that next. Hope you're enjoying 100% Hockey on YouTube. What do we do on YouTube?
Thumbs up, baby.
Thumbs up. And correspond with us. Let us know what you like. And let John know who you'd like to hear on the show. We got the Stanley Cup playoffs coming up right now. So might be able to reach out and talk to some different people.
Really? Really? Because
let John know who you'd like on the show.
They just pop out of the woodwork. They just show up, Oh my God.
I don't.
You're unbelievable.
It feels like they do because I don't do anything with it.
Yes, you're right.
I fully admit that. Bill Armstrong from the Utah Mammoth coming up next on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
Teed it up nicely. Here is the general manager of the Utah Mammoth, Bill Armstrong.
Hold on. The playoff bound Utah. Come on now.
I wanted to ask you, what was that moment like when you clinched?
Well, it was emotional for us. I think, being on the inside where you for the last 6 years, you've been driven to get to this point, and so, it had a lot of emotion in it, I think, for the group. We've been aiming for it for a while. And sometimes when you go through the rebuild, it takes a little bit longer than you think. It's a little bit longer. So for us to kind of clinch this year in the way that we did it and rolled 5 straight in a row was great. And the group, certainly bought in, and they were just, credit to our coaches and our players. They were 100% in and drove us in. So it was good. It's been a long time coming, and a lot of hard work by the group.
So that last year in Tempe, could you ever have pictured 24 months later that this is what your life was going to be like? No, absolutely not. And, if you go to our games, there's just a ton of people with our jerseys. It's just, they've done everything right from the get-go. From the logo to the arena to the practice to the Mammoth, you name it, they've nailed it, and they've done an incredible job. Ryan and Ashley Smith and SEG, they have just blown it out of the water, and our fan base is incredible here. I don't think we could ever imagine. I don't think the NHL could ever imagine it being that good, and it's been an incredible experience, and it's a great thing for the NHL for sure, and also for us. We get to walk into sold out building every night in Salt Lake, and with crazy fans. Nothing better.
Whose idea was the Mammoth?
I don't know, but they need to get that person a raise inside our company. I think it's really like a combination of a whole bunch of people inside. There's a couple guys on the inside that they went to school with the Diesel brothers and they knew them, and it's a great story. Like, they kept telling me about this, what they were doing. I'm like, yeah. I'm worrying about hockey. I'm worrying about the team. And then I walked past it and I was like, oh my God, it's incredible. And the kids love it. So it's just it's been a huge hit here.
It's almost exactly 2 years since you and the team flew to Salt Lake to visit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the pandemonium, the excitement, everything about the Mammoth hasn't changed. The fans have been absolutely incredible. The fan base is bought into hockey. It's a natural fit here in Salt Lake, and it is 2 years, but it's gone by pretty quick. And I like our team's progression through those 2 years.
What has Andre done that has made him so effective with this group?
Well, he's a communicator, and when we hired him, we knew that he had, number one, he'd worked with young kids. He had great success in junior hockey of taking the 16-year-old and making him a darn good player by the time they were 19. So I knew he could work and develop players along the way. But I also knew that he could communicate, and he wouldn't burn his bridges with the players and leave scars when he handled them. And that's hard. You're going through that whole rebuild process. When you're going through it, it's not easy times. And sometimes you can leave a scar. And I felt like he could get the players to buy in. He could bring them along the way and get the team better and grow them. And he's done that. He's done a good job. And he's helped this team take the next step towards getting into playoffs, and now the next step is to play well in playoffs and make a push here.
There's twists and turns to every team's journey towards a Stanley Cup playoff berth. Was there a turning point for you where you went from possibly being really challenged to get in to being comfortably in?
You're never comfortable in the NHL because success is rented and rents due every day here. So you're never. That's higher expectations the more you achieve, and that's a great thing for the group. And when you feel pressure, you're in the right spot. And so I think for us, we went through some losing streaks through the journey. One was a massive one of a 14 gamer. And then it was a 5-gamer. And then, this year we settled into being a more complete team to be able to bounce back and cut our losses quicker, and play a more consistent brand of hockey. And I think you see the Dylan Guenthers of the world and the Logan Cooleys, they're getting better every day here. I think Dylan scored his 40th goal the other night for us at home here. So, they're coming, but that takes a little bit of time to get them, to be a consistent player. They're a good player at the National Hockey League, but to be a good, consistent player takes a little bit of time, and you have to have a little bit of patience along the way. And I think our group always responds when we have an issue. I think they attack it and they go at it and they fix it and we become better. So I like the way that our group kind of goes at it. And I think our turning point was just becoming a more consistent team, but it's probably been a 3-year journey to do that.
And part of getting to the playoffs is guys like Guenther will end up getting that much more experience, and then they grow exponentially, don't they?
Yeah, for us, it's been pain, success, and it's going to be no different in the playoffs. It's a different animal in the playoffs. The game changes. You get down to the best 16 teams, and away you go. We've studied, this group has studied the playoffs hard in the last 3 to 4 years of the, dreaming of getting in, and the coaches have, and they know how hard the playoffs are, and they know the game changes to some degree. And they're trying to make sure our group goes in the right way. And, you get the playoff habits all the way through the year and you play the right way, but it'll be a battle for our group. And, we don't know who we're going to play. So, it should be a battle first round, and see if we can get our legs underneath us and gain some good experience at the same time, win some hockey games.
Have you been following the race in the Pacific Division?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have an idea?
It's interesting, but you look at everybody's schedules, and and you never know. And sometimes the Vancouvers of the world sneak one out, and they're hard teams to beat right now, because you go into Vancouver, they got all their young kids playing hard, and they're trying to get jobs next year for the future. And same thing for us. We go into Calgary, they're real good at home last night, and they give us a whooping. So there's no easy games. The teams are hard at the end of the year. Some teams are real loose with young guys raring to go and showing what they're going to do for the following year. And sometimes you run into tight teams that, they tighten up at this time of year. So it's certainly interesting. Anybody can beat anybody at this time of the year.
Up until this weekend, it could be any one of 3 teams that you face. And I'm old enough, Billy, that before every game was televised, when you got to that last month of the season, there was always a scout there for a team that you might play in the playoffs. How are you managing Anaheim, Edmonton, Vegas from a scouting perspective?
Well, they're all real good teams. We play them enough over the course of the year, and I believe, also with the video that you have nowadays, the analytics that you have nowadays, and the amount of pre-scout we do on teams, you have a ton of information right in front of you. Our scouts do go out on the road and do some pre-scouts too, but I think you got to combine all the information, and you got to really just kind of make sure that you're tuned in. I mean, there's a big part of, obviously it's the way that they play, but it's also the way that we play. We got to continue to play that way, not change too much. So, but our coaches do a good job. And nowadays, the technology is incredible with all the different analytical sites that are out there to gain information about teams.
So I'm going back to that Tuesday night Oiler game in Salt Lake, where you come from behind and beat them. Is that part of the learning curve for your team? And then say, wow, we might play them in the playoffs.
Yes, 100%. The Oilers have had our number for a bit, and we needed to get back on track. And we particularly at that time, it was a run and gun game. We didn't really. There was a lot of mistakes in that game, but we never gave up. We wouldn't roll over. We found different ways to score and found ways to win a hockey game against a darn good Oilers team with the best player in the game. So those are learning curves. I felt like down the stretch we got behind in a couple games, and our team just had the resolve and the determination not to give up and find ways to win. And I think that's part of our growth pattern that we've had over the years is finding ways to win when we faced a little bit of adversity. And I believe our team is a stronger, tougher team this year.
Can you explain why you've never had a shootout this year?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. We're going to get it over before the shootout.
Well, you don't need to worry about that in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, you guys laugh, but our team's not waiting around for the shootout. You know what I mean? Like it's good. We're going to get this thing over quick. We're going to get, so I think the years before, we didn't fare very well in the overtime sometimes in the shootout. So I think our group had a new determination to get a hold of that puck and let's go here. We're gonna try and dominate this overtime with our speed and skill and get it over here.
It's filtered throughout the lineup, including the push for the Stanley Cup playoffs in which you qualified. We'll continue with Bill Armstrong next on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
So now you get into expectations of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
And you go, woo, what are they?
Well, I think the expectations when you come in is that, we're going to approach that first round like we should win it. That's the way we're coming into that. We're coming in swinging and you got to play well. At the end of the day, it's playoff hockey. We're going to learn something about our team. But we have expectations that we think we're a team that has the ability to win the first round. So we're not going to hide from that. We've always put our expectations on the tables here. From the moment we've landed, we said, hey, we want to play meaningful games down the stretch. Hey, we want to get into the playoffs, and we're not afraid to say, hey, let's put our cards on the table. We expect to win the first round. We want to go in there, and we've played all the best teams in the National Hockey League, and we've got the speed and skill. Like I said, the game will change a little bit because it's playoff hockey, but we feel with our ability and our young players and the way that we can skate. We stand a chance in any series, and we set high expectations. We want to win that first round.
How do you prepare them for the Stanley Cup playoffs, for how different it is?
It's a good question. Well, you always get the first game jitters, and then you hope to get out and get back to playing hockey. It takes a little bit of time in the first round to kind of settle in to kind of who you are because of the jitters. And I just don't know if you can put in that into words. Both teams have it. No matter how much experience you have, nobody's really settled in the first round. So you just got to make sure that you get settled and get into your game early as possible and try and shake the jitters a little bit and just get back to the way you played, the 82 games. You had to earn the right to get into the playoffs by playing 82 games. So you got to settle in quick, and that's not always an easy thing, especially when you got to start on the road in the series. But you got to find a way to get in and find your game quick and early. Some would argue that it's better to start on the road. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it is as long as you win.
So in that dressing room, when you walk in that dressing room and you see everybody at their stall, your leadership group, who's going to be doing the talking to their teammates?
Well, that's an interesting one. We got a lot of guys from the Sergachevs and the Schmidts of the world and the Stenlins of the world, the Ian Coles of the world that have won cups. And then you've got Keller being captain of, USA, winning the world championship, getting a gold medal. And he's won a few things in his life. So we kind of do it by committee. I wouldn't think that we have one great Mark Messier in our locker room that stands up and holds court. It's more for committee with our team, but we've got a lot of experience on our team in the playoffs. There's a lot of guys that have played, high level playoff hockey for championships. So I feel confident about our group, that we've got enough experience in there that that'll push us through, some of the jitters and some of the things that you go through.
Well, first of all, we know that Nate Schmidt will talk. So
he's the best. He's the best. Schmitty's a glue. He's a glue guy. He just holds your locker room together because wherever he is, there's fun happening and there's shenanigans and he's got everybody involved. So you couldn't ask for a better hockey player and a better human being than that guy.
You talked about your young guys and not being very patient in overtime and not wanting to go to shootouts. Yeah. What you've done when you think of the Peterka trade, you got rid of some pretty good talent in getting Peterka, and then you had to do a few things to get Uyghur at the deadline too. You have not been shy to try to improve your team. Where does that come from, and where do you see what you've done to this hockey club?
Well, we're a team that studies history a lot, and trying to understand how do you get out of it once you accumulated all these draft picks and all the draft capital of how's the quickest way to get out. And one of the ways was to make trades and take some good young prospects and go get some players. And us was Sergachev, Marino, Dursey, those are, Uyghur, our 3/4 of our defense was built through trades and to add a little skill with the Peterkas of the world. We've got 6 first rounders that sit outside our organization that haven't played for us yet. And that's an unusual thing too. So, we've got those guys slowly coming in, slowly developing that they're going to improve our team as it goes along. But how do we improve our team now, and try to attack it now? And that's using, draft capital and using some good prospects to go get some good players and speed up a little bit of the rebuild to give you some more experience in certain areas. And I think you have to be aggressive. We kicked it off with a Sergachev Marino trade, so we went right at it at the draft, and that paid huge dividends for us.
Think it sent a message to the rest of the league too?
Absolutely. It sent a huge message. One of the GMs walked by at that point and says, "Wow, you guys are having a great day, huh?" not many people could, not many teams could pick 2 guys in the first round and take a massive swing the next day and get Sergachev and Marino. So, it was a great draft for us for sure.
There's been such a jump between the Tempe, the Arizona experience, and now. What's it been like just being competitive as a manager? The difference between 4 years ago to what you're going through now?
Yeah, 4 years ago was just about taking pain, just sucking it up and going through the pain of losing every night to accumulate, high picks. And rebuilding. And, the Jazz actually on the basketball side are going through that process now. And it's painful. It's not, you don't feel like a real GM because you're in a different league. You're trying to develop your team and get out of it. And it's a lot of pain to do that. And now, we're in the great spot where you're coming to the rink every day and you're driving into the rinks like, we got a chance to win tonight. That's a great feeling as a GM. We got a chance to win tonight. No matter who comes to town, whether it's the Montreal Canadiens, the top teams in the league, or it's Vegas, we know we can go into that rink and we got a chance to win. That's a great thing. And that's much different than it was 4 years ago. It's changed quickly for us. I think all our players have a lot of enthusiasm about that. They're not planning their trips to Mexico. They're planning about making some roots here in Salt Lake and trying to win the first round.
We've spent 20 minutes with you, and we haven't even talked about your goaltending, which is Karel Vejmelka has really done an amazing job for you, and as he's become such a mainstay that you don't have to panic about goaltending anymore.
Yeah, interesting. We had a guy on our staff, Brian DeCourty, works for Detroit now, but he's like, and Clay Adams on our staff. I said, hey, we need a goaltender. Darcy Kemper, we're gonna, end up moving at some point. We're gonna need a goaltender, and the first guy they dug up was Karel Vejmelka, and he's been here the whole time through and gotten better every single year and taken massive steps for us and given us a chance to win. Every single night. So it was the first guy we brought to town. He came walking through the dressing room. I said, man, we're going to be tough this year. That fighter's huge. And they said, that's not the fighter. That's your goaltender.
Well, and Billy, how many teams have broccoli heads in the crowd when you?
Oh yeah, he's got a huge following here. And whenever they mention his name, our crowd goes crazy. And he's been a consistent force in the net for us, and he's a huge difference maker when he's in there. So he's been a great ad, and who knew that he was the first guy kind of through the door that changed it for us. And he had some games in the first couple of years where we played Winnipeg, and he was absolutely spectacular. I think he might have stopped 56 shots on net, and just a great player. It's been, kind of the whole time through with us and gotten better every single year.
What's this journey taught you?
It's just about the journey for me as a GM is just sticking with the plan, and we were able to kind of, when we made the trade, we moved OEL out and we brought Guenther. We drafted Guenther. It was a difference. It changed our organization right away. And then we just started swinging as hard as we could in grabbing draft capital. And I think by drafting good players of the Cooleys of the world, and just slowly building through, and the Guenthers of the world, that it gave us, the ownership at the time, and the ownership here saw that we had the ability to draft players, and it bought a little bit of time in the rebuild. And slowly those players are coming into our organization, having massive impact. So as a general manager, it's about patience and sticking to the plan and looking back in history and really understanding how long rebuilds take. And they're not kind to GMs. So you have to be extremely patient in the process.
You know who I'm really the happiest for, other than you, Bill, obviously? Lawson Crouse.
Oh,
Here's a guy that, he came out of junior hockey. I don't have to tell you, you're the scout. He came out of junior hockey. He was Sam Bennett's teammate. He's watched Sam Bennett do all these things. He's only played in the playoffs once before in his career. And now he's going to be back in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he has stuck with the plan more than almost anybody. And you guys are stuck with him too.
Yeah, there was three guys there for myself that didn't want out. They wanted to battle and they wanted to get better. Krauser was one. He never left us through all the good times, bad times. He's been a mainstay, and he's gotten better every single year. Nick Schmaltz is another one, and Clayton Keller. Those guys never asked for a trade. They were fully on board. They stayed and battled and got better every year, and they've put us in a great position now. But Krauser, he's one of our leaders. He's one of the guys that shows up every night to fight and to get in there and to make a difference for our club. So he's been huge for us, and he's just a great human being and a great hockey player too.
The makeup of your defense, was that part of the plan, or did it happen organically?
It was always part of the plan. We had studied Tampa Bay, and they had done a masterful job in the years that they had won, minus Hedman, the McDonoughs and the Sergachevs of the world, and all the other D-men they'd acquire were all through trade. So we knew that we were not going to be able to draft a player, develop him. It would take too long on the defensive side. We had to go out there and acquire some defensemen. So that was all part of the plan for us. We tried to, and like I said, we got a little bit lucky at the time because the cap had moved and Sergachev was available, and we had the assets to go get him. So we did, but that was kind of a game changer for us when we got him.
The group puts up a lot of points too.
Yeah, there's for our group, I think, we're still learning. We're not we're not fully there because some of our impact players are pretty young. But I will say that the group has become more consistent in putting up offense. There's certainly, there's a hunger, and I believe there's still more to come from our group too with that. But there's definitely some skill, and we've got a lot of 20-goal scorers on our team. It's done by committee. And I think that helps spread out the wealth a little bit too.
Can't tell you how happy I am for you, Bill. I still remember meeting you a couple times before you got the job originally in Arizona, and you were trying to find a way to get back in the game after being a scout for so long. And it's nice to be patient.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Very kind words, and always a pleasure to do this show and see you guys. And go Mammoth.
Last time were you in Yellowstone? The last time we did, you were in Yellowstone on a vacation.
Yeah. Vacation, yeah. No more vacations. Now it's work. It's go time, boys.
Team uniform for the first night of the Stanley Cup playoffs with the staff?
The Wise will definitely have the jackets on for sure. I think management and ownership will be going with their lucky shirts.
Well, we know that Ryan's going to be wearing a sweatshirt anyway, so it doesn't matter. So.
Yes, absolutely.
There's Bill Armstrong on 100% Hockey. Back with more after this.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
So Utah doesn't know who they will play yet. We could get, let me phrase it this way. What would you like more? Edmonton, LA, again, just for the spectacle, or Washington, Pittsburgh? Because that's not off the table yet. One more go around with Sid and Ovi.
Oh, I'd rather have Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. I'd rather have that rival. And that's not it.
That wasn't on the list, but write-in ballots are allowed.
Always. Philly's got Carolina and Montreal to beat. Montreal will have something to play for, I believe, by the time they play the Flyers. So that could be a challenge. I think Philly's a good story. I mean, just after the Olympic break, Spencer Carberry came on and said they have to go 16-7 to get to the playoffs, and they're pretty darn close to that. And they played well. What? Tell me what you made of the Ovechkin post game yesterday.
I have no idea. I was of the belief
he didn't want them. He didn't want them to come out and shake hands.
Yeah, I was of the belief that he was leaning towards, or the tea leaves were pointing towards him, this being his last season. And then that happened. I was like, what? He shakes off the Pittsburgh Penguins and their opportunity to acknowledge him and shake his hand?
Yeah, it was unless he doesn't want that attention anymore after what he went through last year, unless he doesn't want to go through that again. It's fascinating. And the other one, in a similar vein, I thought Anze Kopitar handled himself beautifully on Saturday afternoon with the 1-0 victory over the Oilers, and then he took the microphone and thanked everybody and kind of got a little mushy and said he loved everyone. It was great. It was great. I don't know. Did you hear Drew Doughty's comment to him on they played some video from the Kopitar night? He says, we're honoring you and we play well and they sell out all the time when we honor you. They should honor you every night. Well, as only Doughty would say,
He's not wrong. On the Ovi thing, I liked his son sitting on the podium.
Oh yeah, but that's happened before.
Like, that is so good.
Yeah. Well, and he has, give Ovechkin credit. He has made it a family event. His kids involved. I mean, and sitting on the glass, and at the end of the game, gets the tap from Dad. It's a cool thing. It's you and I both remember when Ovechkin was drafted, and then the following year Sid was drafted, and we wondered what kind of impact they would have, and they have had a tremendous impact on the game for the last 2 decades. It's amazing.
I wonder how many sticks he goes into every game with, Ovi, because people are asking for a stick every second face-off that he lines up for it. The winger opposite. Hey, can I get a stick after? It's unbelievable how many people on the other team are leaving with sticks, Ovi sticks, after every game.
Now, if you were playing, would you sit at the face-off circle and skate over?
Oh,
and say,
yes.
I'd like a stick? You would, huh?
If I was in goal, I'd be skating over and saying, "Hey, can I get a stick?"
Well,
sure.
And then he'd say, "I'll give you a puck," but then you couldn't catch it.
Sure. Well, I would have had to say something like, "I gave you 3 goals," but yeah, no, it's really cool what's happening with the other players during this lead up that we don't know whether it's going to be the final game or not. And there's a lot of guys going, "Oh, I didn't think of that. I hope he plays another year so I get a chance."
So I have a wild thought on this. A wild thought. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I think he's done as a Capital. And he goes home and plays in the KHL for a year.
Oh, okay. That's done in my eyes. Done.
You think he's doing that?
I think it's a possibility. Yeah, for sure.
That's what I think is going to happen. That's why he doesn't want to say the R word.
He could say this is my last year in the NHL.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
he needs
guess.
some cash.
I don't think so. I think he's doing just fine.
Do you know enough about the KHL to know where he play?
I think he could pick and choose.
Moscow.
And by the way, he probably by the end of it, he might own a team.
I mean, what's Ovi's GDP?
Yeah, that's right. Well, he has friends.
Yes, he does on that. Wonder how much we'll know by the middle of the week. Still have to decide the Pacific Division title, and there's all these teams, 5 teams that are on the outside that still think they can get in. Your Jets didn't get in.
No. I think they saw the Kings beat the Oilers and said, screw it. Next thing you know, it's 7-1 Philadelphia. 7-1.
Be so hard to play that game.
Yeah.
I don't blame players in that situation.
Not after they've had
a
a great string and then it's Kelly Rudy always describes it when they went down 3-1 to Montreal in the Stanley Cup final in 93 is at a certain point in game 5 when Montreal got a 2-goal lead, his body just stopped.
Yeah.
And I think after 80 games of a schedule and a really tight schedule, and you realize we're not going to make it, I think your body just drops. You know, so.
We haven't even been in that situation, and our body just drops.
My body dropped in 1991.
Your body dropped on the dog walk.
No, come on now.
Can't get going. We'll talk to you next time on 100% Hockey. Give us your thoughts. Give us a like. Subscribe to it. Appreciate to everybody staying with us and all you new people on board. Hope you're enjoying what we're doing on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.